welcome to the Witching Hour. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan, better known as Daddy Dan on the Daddy Dan blogs. I'm having a pretty cool night tonight. How about you guys? Let me know in the comments. I'm gonna set this camera up and we'll keep our eyes open and see if anything uh, creeps out in the dark tonight as we listen to tales of Bigfoot and the Dog Man with my friend Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Stick around, guys. Why everybody comes in. Greetings, King of Cleveland. The video game king. I don't like that view. Let me pull it down a little bit. Oh, that's too much. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's hard. Now I want to keep doing that. Greetings all and welcome to the Witching Hour. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan. And tonight on the Witching Hour, we're going to be listening to my friend Bigfoot Rob tell us stories about cryptids, about Bigfoot, about Dog Man, about all the cool things out there in the world. In promotion of his new book, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. So, welcome everybody to the show. Welcome Jimbo and my flock, and I saw Jacob in there. Oh, some of the cool people. Be sure to check out Jacob. He's a video game king. And while people continue to come on in, how about a story from Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, while we look to see if anything pops up or shows its evil head around my yard tonight. Because, I've been having a lot of cool stuff happen. You can see them videos here on the Daddy Dan blog. Yeah, that's right. And until then, we'll check out an alleged werewolf kills a family.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. It's Friday, June 16th. It's time for another Encounter subscriber or emailed in story to me to report out to you guys, read to you guys. Thank you to each and every single one of you that has subscribed to my channel, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, on YouTube. This story, you guys, I believe, after reading through this, it's from Russia. It has to be from a Russian local newspaper. A lot of these things I'm not going to say I agree with. They mention the word monkey a couple times throughout this. I don't believe Bigfoot is at all a monkey or an ape. However, I think it's an interesting perspective from a different country, unlike, the United States, North America. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Again, if somebody sends me an email or a subscriber sends me something, and if I think it's worthy of reading, I'm going to do it. You spent the time to send it to me. I'm going to do my best to get it out, and I'm doing it with this one. So thank you to each and every one of you. Here we go. People say that they look like monkeys. Monkeys make you smile. But a Bigfoot strikes you with horror. Russian writer Ivan Turgenev met someone that looked like a troglodyte. Now, you guys, I had to look that up. Troglodyte is cave dweller. I looked it up. That's all it says is cave dweller. Okay? Something from the prehistoric age. The horror of the encounter remained in his mind throughout his whole life. It happened where Turgenev was a young man. Years later, he told the story to his French friends. Here's what Guy de Maupassant wrote about it. I remember a story that Turgenev told us. He was hunting in a Russian forest. He was wandering the whole day, and in the evening he went out to a bank of a quiet river. The river was flowing in the shadow of trees. The water there was crystal pure and cold. Turgenev was gripped with a desire to swim in that water. He took his clothes off and jumped in the river. He was a tall, strong, well-built man, and he was a very good swimmer as well. He was enjoying the current of the river with his body and his soul. Grass and aquatic plants caressed him. Suddenly, someone's hand touched his shoulder. He looked around quickly and saw a strange creature. The creature was gazing at him with great curiosity. It looked like something in between a woman and a monkey. The creature had the wrinkled face of a monkey. Messy red hair was framing the face and flowing behind the back. Turgenev, lost my place. Turgenev was flabbergasted. Horror chilled him to the bone. He started swimming to a bank of the river, not even trying to understand what he just saw. However, the creature was swimming beside him, touching his neck and back and his feet. Finally, the young man reached the ground and ran as fast as he could. He did not care about either his clothes or his rifle. He forgot about everything and was guided only by the immense, uncontrollable wish to stay alive. The monster was following him. It was running very fast, too, uttering some squealing sounds. The young man could hardly catch his breath. He was about to fall down on the ground, but he suddenly saw a boy with a whip in his hands. The boy started whipping the creature, and it ran away, yelling in pain. The courage of the little shepherd is explained with the fact that it was not the first time that he had saw this. Later, some local residents told Turgenev that the monster was a crazy woman that was living alone in the forest and went completely insane. Turgenev made himself believe in such an explanation. Yet, It was known in the 19th century that people do not get covered with thick hair all over their bodies, even if they lived alone in the woods. According to eyewitness stories, a Bigfoot lurks something like a big monkey, or looks like a big monkey. Again, most of us probably disagree. Most likely, it is not quite true. There are always a lot of people in front of monkeys that are caged in zoos. Adults and children laugh and smile when they see the mocking similarity. Yet, a troglodyte never brings a smile on your face. It brings horror. Again, a troglodyte, a cave dweller, something prehistoric. The newspaper literature Kaira Gastan wrote in 1990, Shepherd Umashama's wife once said that she saw a Bigfoot not far from the pasture. The Bigfoot was standing on a high rock. She pleaded with her husband to leave that horrid place and go to another pasture. The man did not agree, although he became anxious about it too. He started searching for the Bigfoot. He saw their tracks, but never saw a living one. One evening, he heard his wife screaming very loudly. He grabbed his rifle and rushed outside. The wife was lying on the ground, almost unconscious. She was speechless, and could not say a word. She could only point her finger in the direction of the rocks. The shepherd gazed in the direction that she was pointing and saw the silhouette of a running man. He did not hesitate, and he fired his rifle. In the morning, the shepherd found blood spots on the rocks. Amush thought that those creatures would not come back to their pasture anymore. He was so wrong. Amush's life turned into a nightmare. Several days afterwards, he found his little son dead. There was no trace of violence on the boy's body, only a little wound on his neck. Amush was sure that his boy was killed by a Bigfoot. He went mad and swore to himself that he would take revenge for his son. He was spending days and nights sitting outside his house, waiting for a Bigfoot to come back. Well, it was all in vain. One night, he fell asleep, and when he entered his house in the morning, he found the dead body of his wife. Again, there was only a small red wound on her neck.
And apparently, Bigfoot Michigan Rob
All
has
red
a sponsor.
wound on her neck. Amush let out a scream of grief and desperation. He started wandering in the woods, having forgotten about his sheep and house and his food. He was desperately gripped with anger. The only thing that was on his mind was to kill a Bigfoot for the death of his family. Another shepherd, Shapak, took care of Amush's sheep. One day he suddenly saw the sheep getting very troubled and excited. They were bleating and rushing from one side to another. The animals were apparently frightened by something. Shapak could only see a silhouette of a man covered with thick fur disappearing amid the trees and the brush. He then saw another man on the ground. Shapak ran up to him and recognized Amush. The shepherd was already dead. Blood was leaking from a small wound in his neck. Who knows? Maybe nothing would have happened if the shepherd had not fired his rifle first. You know, very interesting story. I, for one, believe you fire a Bigfoot, you will not survive. But let's take a backtrack on this. 3 little marks on 3 dead people. Bigfoot's not going to leave a little mark, is he, you guys? Number one, I don't think Bigfoot goes out and kills people. Now, did something happen? Apparently, yes. Bigfoot, I'm not convinced. According to this email, and it appears to be an article written from a Russian newspaper. This community or these people thought it was a Bigfoot. That's open for debate. I'm going to say no, not a Bigfoot. What I am going to say is it was something, right? It was something. What? I don't know. I hope you enjoyed that. I kept it brief for you guys this weekend. It's food for thought, anyways. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think happened. What do you think this was? You do have.
That's my friend, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And the reason I'm doing a lot of Bigfoot Michigan Rob stuff tonight is because Bigfoot Michigan Rob has a book coming out called True Cryptid Encounters. And my wonderful son, he ordered me True Cryptid Encounters Book 1 today. I can't wait to get it, and I'll make a video about that. I see my real good friend, Dave Sunstorm, in the chat. I dropped his link. Everybody be sure to subscribe to Good Stuff Guy, Dave Sunstorm. He's my favorite Good Stuff guy here on YouTube. He's the leader of our Good Stuff community. And I want to thank Dave. I got that package you sent me today. Oh my God. It was so cool. I'm not going to tell people what it is. I'm just going to have to wait for the video to see. But I'm going to post a video, and I'm going to send you a picture sometime tomorrow probably. You know what I'm talking about, Dave. So we'll get to that later. Tonight I'm chilling out and listening to some Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And these are stories you might hear some of tonight, and you might be able to find them in his new book. And be sure to check that out. And you can check out his appearance on the Paranormal Highway. And I'll drop that in the comments. Be sure, mods, if you see these trolls coming in here, be sure to take them out for me. Especially if you hear me talking. And that'll be a guy named Mox from the Matt Troisi and Keto Channel. And I made a mistake of sticking up for somebody who was being bullied by this little goof. And now he's made 40 fake accounts and bombarding everybody's chats with horrible stuff. He attacked Matt Troisi's stream, and now the little piece of crap is attacking me. Now, well, there you go. If you stick up to a troll and a bully, they will try to attack you because that's all they got. Well, hey, Mox, drop more of your little crap in my chat, because that just gives me another number. You're not hurting me. You're a tiny little troll, a piece of crap, a piece of garbage, and I have no respect for you. It's not my fault that your mom and dad were brother and sister. And I'm going to leave it at that, people. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm not going to be no more mean. I'm just going to play another wonderful story by my friend Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And everybody be sure to look out for the trolls. You can tell them they show up quite regularly in people's chats these days. Especially if I share you out. That's why it's best thing to do is make Daddy Dan a mod in your stream. Because if I share you out, these little trolls might show up. If I don't share your streams out, I'm protecting you from the trolls because I'm not a mod in your stream. You know what I mean, mods? Okay, well, there you go. That's why you don't get shared out, buddy. Oh, now you know. And now we're going to be hunting the Michigan Dog Man with Bigfoot Michigan Rob for a few minutes. And I'll answer some questions here shortly. Greetings, Iron Dogger, Alaskan Queen of Bigfoot Hunting. Welcome to my new show, The Midnight Hour. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan. And tonight I'm talking Dog Man. And promoting my friend Bigfoot Michigan Rob's new book. Be sure to check that out. I can't wait to get my copy.
Life is expensive.
Oh, wow, we got really cool commercials too. I love commercials, don't you?
It's kept me busy. In fact, my son had.
Don't you just love that?
Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. It's Friday, May 12th, and you know what that means. It's time for another encounter story sent in by either a subscriber or an emailer. This was sent in by a subscriber from Wexford, Michigan. This guy is allegedly hunting the Michigan Dog Man. He had a crazy encounter in the woods and near his home. I hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob if this is your first time here. Please share me out, like, share, leave a comment. The super thanks is open for those who care to donate. I do appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in. As also for the shows that I do Tuesday, 9 in the East, Beyond BMR, and of course Thursday afternoon at 1, brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and Krista. Here we go. I'm excited. Kick back. Get your favorite beverage. It's Friday. The hunt for the Michigan Dogman. Rob, I have been hunting Dogman for 5 years. I had my first encounter where I live now in Wexford, Michigan. Rob, you often mention on your shows that Wexford is the Dogman capital in the state of Michigan. I do agree with you. Also, I understand that your Bigfoot encounter was in Wexford, Michigan, where you spent time fishing Lake Cadillac. That was back in 2018, Rob, if I recall. And yes, that is the year that I had my encounter. Well, Rob, my encounter was also in 2018. Oh, and excuse me, for the purposes of this email, my name is Jim, and I listen to all your shows late at night on replay at my factory job. Again, I live in Wexford, and I have a home nestled close to the woods and moved there in the late fall of 2015. The first 3 years spent on my property was mainly remodeling and adding some upgrades to the house. I also own hunting property 3 miles to the north, so a perfect spot for me. The property also cuts back about an hour's ride into work, so again, an ideal location. Like most that live in Upper Michigan, we have a nice mixture of wildlife and fauna throughout. Our biggest animals, perhaps the deer. We also get an assortment of coyotes, foxes, and usually bigger cats like bobcats. And of course, the other usual rodents and vermin. It was not until early spring in 2018 when I came across 3-toed footprints on my property along, and some of these footprints actually extended to 4 toes. I describe these as digits, with what appeared to be claws extending from, of course, the digits or the flanges. At first, I thought it was like a small bobcat or another predatory animal. However, these tracks or prints were much longer, unlike a cat's, and much wider, and they had much wider, and cats have shorter pads. Definitely unlike cats. And these claws were much, much longer. I first came upon these tracks at my wood line. They came from the woods out about 10 feet, appeared to stop, then circle back into the forest. This is where I lost sight of them as they reeled back. I was kind of perplexed at this. I went back to the house and decided on the weekend I would go into the woods and see what I could find. The weekend arrived. I got off work at 5 in the morning, got home around 5:30, and took a nap until about 10. Rob, when you work the night shift, you don't sleep. You take daily naps. A very weird sleep pattern for those that work this type of shift. I entered the woods from the tree line where I found the unusual tracks. Surprisingly, after living 3 years at this location, I never really explored these woods. As I mentioned earlier, I spent most of my time at my hunting property situated to the north. After about 1 mile in, I actually forgot the reason why I entered the woods. In fact, I kind of kicked myself as to why I never explored these woods, considering they are right in my very own backyard. Naturally, I made excuses about work, the hunting property, and of course, being married with 2 grade school level kids kept me busy. In fact, my son Adam had kept bugging me to coach his junior Pee Wee baseball team. The woods were like most, beautiful and full of life. I just loved the natural fragrances of the outdoors and the like. While hiking the woods, I found no such tracks like I had at the tree line. Then, I came upon a very unusual structure. It kind of looked like a mound, but a very tall and wide mound. At first, it appeared as though it was deadfall from the surrounding trees over the years that kept piling up on it. I walked onto the far side of the mound, and at the bottom was a rather sizable 4-foot entrance. I got down on the ground and peered inside. Fortunately, I had brought a flashlight and could peer inside. Then, while from the outside looking in, I noticed the walls and top of this mound appeared rather interesting. Do I dare go inside? I think to myself. Realizing no bears or wolves were in these parts, I reluctantly ventured inside. Inside this structure, I was amazed at the complexity of the interwoven twine, branches, and some of these branches were quite sizable. Also, it appeared holding everything together, despite the interwoven, was hardened mud, which also reminded me of a substance, and it kind of looked like some sort of cement. Then, while exploring the inside of this mound, I came across 3- and 4-toed tracks that I discovered earlier at my tree line. I do also want to mention that to give you scale, I am a 6-foot man, and I could stand straight up with ample space above my head. The mound itself was about 8 feet wide by perhaps 15 feet long. I followed the tracks for a short distance, which led to a 4-foot hole that was dug out where the tracks led down inside. I got onto my hands and knees to look, when all of a sudden a foul stench of rotting meat and ammonia filled my nostrils. Then I heard what appeared to be movement from inside the tunnel. Then a loud, unnatural growl emanated from the depths below me. Startled, I got up and quickly exited the tunnel. I made my way back to the house. However, the 1.5-mile trek back to my house was not very pleasurable. Not like the hike in. I had gotten a sense of fear. About 5 minutes, I distinctly heard a heavy bipedal footfall flanking me to the right. Every time I stopped, the footfall stopped. Looking to my right, I can't see anything. I had perhaps 10 feet of visibility into the woods as the dense forest quickly closed. This continued all the way until I broke the tree line leading back to my house. I was so scared and had wondered what was following me, and also what built that mound. I could not think of any animal known to me, and I was confused and anxiety filled my body. Later that evening, I went to my shed to put away some tools that had been laying around in my backyard. The closer that I approached my shed, the sense of being watched overtook me, as well as that pungent smell that I came across earlier that day at the mound. I realized the smell is coming from inside my shed. I approached the door of my shed. You guessed it. There were those tracks appearing just outside the door. Shaking and still feeling as though I'm being watched, I reluctantly entered my shed. That foul smell overtook me almost to where I passed out. I gazed to the back of the shed where, in horror, I saw the fresh carcass of a deer savagely ripped to pieces, with the bloody head of the deer almost strategically placed and mounted on the top of my second-hand refrigerator that I use for storing my fresh meat from my hunts. Rob, man, I am used to skinning and parting deer, but this sight was horrific. I ran out of my shed and vomited on the grass in front of me. I mentioned earlier, on my way to the shed, that I was being watched, or at least I felt that I was being watched. My instincts were correct. Firstly, that strange, indiscernible howl or growl came from my tree line. I looked up after dispensing my stomach, and there stood on 2 legs with red eye shine, some humanoid-looking figure was peering in at me. It almost appeared to be a big wolf or dog. I could recognize what did appear to be unusually tall, almost spike-like ears coming up from the side of its head. Then the figure turned and ran back into the woods. Despite my terror, I have made it a point to hunt down whatever this beast is. I need to find it. I need to kill it. Just to give me peace of mind. That may sound foolish, but I have a wife and kids to think about, and I refuse to flee from my home. A week later, I went back to that mound. To my great surprise, the mound has been destroyed and the tunnel had been covered up. What was this creature? Did this creature actually destroy the mound, put me off of his trail? I don't know. Whatever this is, I need to find it. It has been 5 years and I've had no luck. Although late at night in the distance, I can still hear those scary growls. I think the creature is letting me know that he is still out there, lurking and waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. Thank you so much for that, you guys. What do you think? The guy, well, it's been 5 years, 2018. Apparently sounds like a dog man to me. He found that mound very well put together, interwoven. Found the tunnel, the stench down in the tunnel. He leaves. He's being flanked all the way to his home. Gets to his home later in the evening. Goes out to put his tools away. Feels like he's being watched. He feels a creepy, eerie feeling. And then how about that, you guys, inside his shed, finding that mangled, tattered, and torn deer with the head placed on top of his refrigerator. And then seeing this humanoid with the red eyes from his tree line. He explains the head, kind of like we've all heard before, the pointed ears, the oversized head. Dogman? Well, you know, Wexford, Michigan is known for dogmen. Wexford, Michigan is known for cryptids. They also are known for Bigfoot. Not to have a sighting in the last 5 years, but hearing the howls, yeah, I think this creature's out there. And like he says, what's he waiting for? I don't know. Hopefully he takes care of himself and his family, of course. And I got to reach out to this guy. I would like to get some more details and see what else he's come up with. Hopefully he responds back. I'm sure he will. I've emailed him on a couple occasions. Thank you ever so much for everybody. I hope you enjoyed that one. It's Friday. I got rid of my groundhog. I appreciate everybody that sent in emails or made some comments on my last video. Thank you. He's gone. I haven't seen him in over a week, so now I can finish up my yard work, do what I need to do. Once again, thank you for subscribing to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I love and appreciate each and every single one of you.
That is Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I hope you enjoyed the haunting Michigan Dogman tale. You're listening to Wolfman Dan here on the Witching Hour. My new little thing I'm doing on YouTube. I hope you like it. Be sure to like it before you push that there thumbs up. And I do appreciate it. I'm taking a look down through the back part of my yard area. You know, I have a lot of weird things happen in this neighborhood. There's a Indian burial ground about 120 yards from me. There's some goof is digging up with a bulldozer, believe it or not. And it's stirred up all kinds of things. Be sure to check out my videos here on YouTube. And I'm sorry, like I said before, Daddy Dan had a little stroke a while back, and I've been off the air. I hadn't been doing too many live streams. I really hadn't. If anybody's got any questions, you can put them in chat. I am watching it, and I'll answer anything while I look up a little something that just inspired me. Because we've been listening to my friend Bigfoot Michigan Rob, who's got that really cool book coming out. Let me promote it again for him. True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. My son just ordered me that book today. When I get that book, I am going to make a video. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. And my friend Bigfoot Michigan Rob was on the show, The Paranormal Highway, today. Talking about talking about his new book. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to play a clip from the Paranormal Highway where my friend Eric talks with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And hope you enjoy it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that stupid little bell. And I'll be back to talk to you again in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
All right, about that, but you agree with me that more people might think aliens are real versus Sasquatch?
Yeah, I would probably say yes. I mean, it certainly gets more publicity even on mainstream, even though a lot of the information that comes out is stuff that we all already know. But UFOs and aliens, I think, are more popular. I think that's been around for a long time. Now, Bigfoot came out, as we all know, back Patterson-Gimlin really made it popular. But Bigfoot, a lot of people, yes, there's way more skeptics. Now, don't get me wrong. There are skeptics when it comes to UFOs and aliens. Yeah. Now, me personally, all communities, right? And, you're not going to get as a big an audience. I mean, you can go on all these UFO and alien channels or books or movies, and they're way more popular than Bigfoot or cryptids in general, right? And it's people like us and people that are in the Bigfoot community, it's up to us to spread the word that these things are out there and they do exist. I mean, I don't believe in Bigfoot, dude. I know he exists from my personal experiences and accounts, right? Now, I will say this. I do know that UFOs exist because I was about 7 years old, and it was the middle of the week, and me and my brother, were sleeping, and it was my mom woke us up about an hour before we had to get up to prepare for school. I was 7, 8 years old. Robbie, Davey, it's my brother, so my mom calls me and us, the Robbie and the Davey thing, right? So come to the back kitchen window, and she goes, "What do you guys see?" And me and my brother, again, we're young guys, 7, 8 maybe, and there was in the backyard hovering probably about 100 yards up, I would say, in the backyard, there was a UFO, a disc-shaped flying object, and it was hovering, and it was moving up and down 10, 12 feet, up and down. She goes, you guys, back in the day, you got to remember, it used to be called flying saucers. I mean, UFO was out, but flying saucer was the first word as a kid that I knew. And sure enough, Scott, or Eric, yeah, it was a spaceship, because I remember watching Lost in Space, and this thing, it looked like the craft from Lost in Space. I'm like, Mom, you're right, that is something. And then it hovered there it had to have been like 30, 40 seconds, and we're just staring at this thing. And of course, back then, you don't have a cell phone. You don't have you have that Kodak camera. But we're looking at this, and then it jettisoned.
We didn't really have TVs. And when we had TVs, we only had like 4 or 5 channels.
Well, this is well before cable TV.
Yeah.
So then this thing, all of a sudden, as I said, it was hovering, and then you know what, man? It just darted in a half a second, vanished, boom, straight to the sky it shot. So my mom calls my dad. My dad's name's Bob, and now he worked for Chrysler at the time. Now, I have to tell you something. Back in the days, this is in the 70s probably, 78, 79, and she pulls my dad off the factory floor, which is a no-no way back when, right? And she gets my dad on the phone. Bob, I saw a flying saucer in the backyard. The kids saw it too. Pam, my mom's name, why are you pulling me off the floor for this BS? You can't do that. I thought there was something wrong at the house, because typically you can only call the factory back then if there was an emergency within the family. This is how in awe and shocked my mom was. So, hangs up the phone. Later on, and so she carted me and my brother off to school. So, about 5 p.m., the local news comes on. And as you mentioned, Eric, there was Channel 4, Channel 7, Channel 2.
That's about it.
Yeah, and you pretty much watched the news and whatever was on TV, right? So they led the story with UFO spotted in Dearborn Heights, which was the city I lived in Michigan at the time. And they did this story because on that day, not only did my mother see the UFO, not only did myself and my brother see the UFO, about 365 people, 500 people called the local news and reported this. So the lead story was UFO spotted or flying saucer spotted in Michigan, city of Dearborn Heights. So that validated, not only did my mom and my brother and I see this, but 300 to 500 people saw this, which was enough for the news. That was the lead story starting the news. And so my dad, who's sitting in the recliner, kind of apologized to my mom. Well, you weren't BSing me or making it up, and now that it made the news and there was so many other people that saw it, yeah. And so it kind of started me down the path where I am today. Not only am I into Bigfoot, I'm into UFOs, aliens, the mysteries of the world, the paranormal, such fascinating topics. And yeah, so back to your original question, I still till today though, Eric, I think people do believe more in UFOs than Bigfoot. I mean, we've had in the last 5 years, we've had 3 or 4 news networks, promoting and putting on
That's about it.
the hearings. But as I said, a lot of these hearings, I mean, again, if you're into the field like we are and people watching today, we kind of know a lot of these stories already. However, you'll never see a hearing on Bigfoot spotted in Oregon or out by Eric's South Pacific Northwest, will you?
And you guys can tell that Rob's not from this area because it's not Oregon, it's Oregon. No, it is we call it Oregon, but that's regardless. There's a reason why I bring this up, because I know everybody in the chat's like, I thought the book is cryptids. Why do we talk about UFOs? Now, and I'll tell you guys why in the chat. Danny Stanton brought up something yesterday, because I was like, when I did a vote on Roswell versus Mare Island, Rob said, I picked Roswell, forget his name, because it's been on more on TV and more of this. And I started thinking, he's right. It's more publicized. You got the hearings, the popularity is there. But what Rob's doing is not just telling his story in his channel. It does take books and documentaries and stuff to get the cryptid story out there. There are people who there's people. My wife's one of them who would rather read the book on information than hearing it on TV, on hearing it on the news. So what you're doing, Rob, with this book is getting maybe a new audience to look into it. So you are helping the community with this book. Now, I ordered a book because it just technically came out yesterday, and I pinned the link to Amazon where you could order it.
Oh, thank you.
Of course,
I have to say, I dropped the link too. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
It's pinned, and it's also in the description. And I actually ordered the book as soon as Rob sent me the link. Now, I was hoping with a long shot that I would have the book here ready for him, but Amazon says arrival by 10 p.m. and it's not even out for shipment yet. So I'm getting it today, but I'll probably get it at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that. But now, your book is called True Cryptids Encounters.
Yeah.
May I ask, I don't want you to spoil it, but is it one story, or how many stories are in this book?
Okay, well, the cool thing about this book is it's different. You see, it's not so I was sitting back, okay, and I was just thinking about, back about 2 years ago, how this really started. I didn't even think about writing a book, let alone starting a YouTube channel, right? And then I had put something out there because, I have guests on my channel, Bigfoot Michigan Rob YouTube channel, of course. And and I have guests, and my guests are mostly researchers and experiencers that come on, and I interview them on the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So then I clicked out one day, this is like 2 years ago, I dropped my email. I said, look, anybody interested in sharing an encounter story, just, send me an email of your stories. So it took 2 or 3 months. I wasn't getting anything. And then all of a sudden, Eric, a lot of these stories started to come in. So I'm like, wow. So what I started to do was, and all these people wanted to be anonymous. They didn't necessarily want to be a guest on the show, but they wanted their story to be told. And a lot of these stories, Eric, there's just not enough information because most of them are one-time experiencers. So there's not enough information to do a whole hour and a half podcast on. So I started writing their stories and putting them in video format on my channel, and that seemed to grow in popularity because my videos outside of the live shows, I'll put these stories out. They're anywhere from 8 to 17 minutes long, from subscribers to the channel or a variety of different emailers. And then I started collecting a bunch of stories, so I started putting them and pushing them on my channel, and I got a very good response. So after a while, I'm getting enough data and information where I said, you know what, I should write a book. So with the book, it's not your typical chapter 1 through chapter 50. It's not a book like that. What it is, it's kind of unique in the fact that there's 45 encounter stories, and they're all individual stories. Okay, so the first story I think is Thunder Mountain Dogman. Story 2 is Bigfoot in Michigan. Then there's the Demon Dog of Illinois. So they're all. So what you can do when you finally get the book, go to the table of contents, and you can read it out of order. Whatever theme or title of the encounter is that you're into, you can go right to that. There's a page is listed, and you can go to page 27 to find Dogman Island and read it. So you can read it out of order, in order, whatever you prefer. Certainly, I prefer you read all of them, but whatever you're interested in, you can find it very easy in the table of contents. So it's 45 cryptid encounter stories that I've gotten over the years from people that send it in to me. And then, of course, I had to reshape some of it because some of these stories might be like 90 words long. So, yeah, I'd add some descriptions. I say, hey, I have to call the person back. Now, what was the day like? Were you in the forest? Was it raining? Was it sunny? So, sure, certainly a lot of things I had to give it a foundation. But the stories are all true to form from what the people have sent me. So that's always accurate. And so, yeah, and so the book got published on Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I just looked today on the theme that I'm set up with. And so I've already sold like 27 copies, which I was like, wow. Because it is a tight market. Like we were talking about earlier, if you're not in, if people are into Bigfoot, if you type Bigfoot on Amazon or Bigfoot Mr. Rob, you'll find it. So I know it's going to be hard to market. So therefore, it's a lot of word of mouth, like shows like this. I'm trying to get booked on other shows. Like I've got something already out to the big radio station. What's it called? With
Space Out Radio?
No, not Space Out Radio, but the other guy. Mine slips me. Coast to Coast Radio. So they emailed me back. I might be doing a gig on there already. So, yeah, so it should be word of mouth because, again, like you mentioned, if it's not put in front of your face, people don't care about Bigfoot, right? 2% of the population probably does.
That's true.
And I didn't write this book to sell a million copies or be rich overnight. That ain't going to happen because, again, it's such a segregated and segmented market that it is what it is. And I always wanted to write a book, so yeah, I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, you're right. Different states, like Washington's known for the Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot parades. There's, when we had a basketball team, the Sasquatch was the mascot for the Sonics. You know, and there's even a law up in Washington where if you shoot a Bigfoot, you can get arrested for manslaughter. So Washington really embraced the Bigfoot. Any store you go to, there's Bigfoot posters, Bigfoot this here, Oregon, all the way up to Vancouver. But when I was I'm from California. When I was in California, nobody gave a shit about UFOs or Bigfoot, depending on where you're at. You know,
Yeah.
so it is depending on where you're at. And it sounds like your book is perfect for me because my biggest problem in a book is I have a hard time to go from A all the way to the end with one story.
Yeah.
You got multiple stories, so it's like a faster
Yeah.
read. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's more my pace. It's way more my pace. It's like you know me.
Yeah, well, that's the way I set it up. Because I'm saying, well, I just want to throw some book out there because if you look at a lot of people, they'll write encounter stories on books. They'll write Bigfoot encounters. I mean, I'm not unique. I'm not the only one who's done this. Many people have done it. But what I did to hopefully amass a bigger audience is even the title of my book I thoroughly thought out to help. And again, this is marketing, right? I mean, I did something, so I expect and hope to make a return. So that's why I even titled it Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents. And then on the back cover says, from the Bigfoot Michigan Rob YouTube channel. So no one's done that. I set up to market not only the book, but also my YouTube channel. So hopefully I can gain subscribers, sell some books. But bottom line, though, for me, Eric, I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm happy with it. And it was like a bucket list thing. Now, am I going to write more? Probably. I've got book 2 in the works, but I'm also coming out with my personal encounters, which will be more of a chapter book. It's going to talk about my personal encounters from age of 5 and 7 through today. So I got a lot of things in the works. I do enjoy writing. I always wanted to be a journalist or a writer growing up. My dad told me, well, if you don't make it big, you're going to be broke. So that's why he went into business, right? But now I'm doing something that I wanted to do since a kid, and I'm in my 50s, right? So now I'm doing something for my own personal
That's awesome.
well-being,
Well, we all like to find ways to support, and some people, when they want support, they want something in return. But by getting your book, you're supporting you, and they get a book for read. And I try to support my my community. I call you guys all family. Like I have a book I bought for Amber's Paraworld. It's a great read because I feel people like yourself, Amber, that's where the real stories are coming from. It's not going to come from CNN or Fox News because they're gonna dissect whatever it is to get ratings. I'm sure when I get your book today, it's going to be straight from the information you got from the people in it. You're not going to. I have a hard time believing you will carve anything out on purpose just to make it more spicy or more down. You probably tell it how it is.
And I will tell everybody listening right now, as I read the back of the book. I mean, if you want to pull it up, I could probably read that blurb. You had it. Well, you don't have to do that. Here's the thing about the book. In the back cover, it states, I'm trying to summarize, these are true accounts and events from people. Yeah, okay, so here it is. This is on the back of the book from the Bigfoot Michigan Rob YouTube channel. Something natural, perhaps not so natural, lurks in the abundant wilderness of state and national parks of North America and beyond. Whether hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, or just taking a relaxing day's walk through nature, many people have life-changing encounters with strange creatures in the forest. Now, really quickly, life-changing encounters, that's me. It changed my life when I had my encounter. So moving on, this book will explore true and accurate eyewitness accounts of Sasquatch, Dogman, and a few other mysterious entities. All of the testimonials and stories have been provided by complete anonymity to the
Greetings,
author
Harper.
over the years, serving as therapy and perhaps even closure to their traumatic experiences. Again, that is me, Eric. A lot of this book is just about me because it was therapeutic when I went on and told my encounter, and it did form as therapy. Many of the stories found in this book are terrifying, eye-opening, sad, in some cases gratifying. Come with us and ask, are we not alone in the forest? So really that back blurb on the back of the book is really me. It's surmising the trauma that I dealt with, the people judging me, calling me a liar that couldn't happen. So yeah. So really, when people send me an email, whether they're a subscriber or some random person, I'm telling their story because these people in this book have never been on my show before because they want to be and remain anonymous because they still don't want to be judged, right?
True.
And all the people I've contacted, the majority, I said, look, most of these are on video format already. And I said, look, I'm going to have a book come out. Do you mind? No, just don't put my name in it. Because a lot of these people, man, I'm over my encounter. I'm not traumatized by it any longer. I don't seek therapy, and I saw a shrink. I'm going to admit that on air for a couple of weeks, and I felt really weird telling my therapist about my Bigfoot encounter. That was the hardest thing I ever did in my life because this therapist is looking at me. Actually, it was a lady because I switched. I had a guy, which was a dick, then I got a girl who was awesome, and I felt better about it, and so if I went to that length, imagine the people out there that felt just like I did. And then the acknowledgments in the book, if anyone buys it, it's dedicated to those people that have had traumatizing events in their life. And you'll find Dogman, Bigfoot, there's a Mothman in there, there's a couple paranormal ones in there. But I'm just providing release for them. So I did it for myself, yes, but I also did it for others. So when they get the copy of the book, they can say, wow, cool, thanks for that. And many people have already reached out. The few that I've told about the book, like, cool, thank you so much. So for them, if I can help them, then I did my job. Again, I don't have to make $1 million. Hell, if I make $100, I'm happy, right? It was a personal agenda.
Well, I see your point 100% because when I got in the military, I had to go see a therapy. You know, it's you know from the military and stuff, and it's hard enough to even go in there, to even sit on the couch and tell them. And I'm thinking about your story. You know, I'm telling them what happened to me in the military, the accident, the medical stuff. I can imagine sitting on the couch, you're going through something, but through a cryptid and stuff, and I can see you, you are also thinking, is she going to think I'm crazy? Is she going to think this? It's natural. It's natural to think that. But I can see where writing a book, seeing them can help, because when you start talking about it, when you start speaking about it, it does make you feel better. It does get off your chest. I heard Mike Long Island Bigfoot, him going out investigating Bigfoot in the woods is his therapy. It makes him feel good. And if you can help people do the same thing, that's awesome. It is cool now that there are platforms now that people can feel comfortable. Like, you know what? I didn't feel comfortable before, but Bigfoot Michigan Rob, if he could come out and speak about it, do a book, I'm going to go on his show and tell the people my story. They believe it or not. And you helping them to release it from holding it in.
Yeah, because, I've spoken about this many times. When I had my first encounter, it was 2018, and you've heard this, Eric. Most of the people in your chat already know me. I owned a bar. I didn't go to work for 6 months. I just felt so lost and alone. And that's why, my first video, I didn't have a YouTube channel. I wanted to put out a video about I talked to several people, and they said, you got to speak on this. So instead of worrying about the naysayers and talking to your friends or relatives, put it on a video, make it public. Yeah, some people give you backlash, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Get it out there in verbiage. So I did a video. So I had to put together the handle Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I came up. I'm Rob. I live in Michigan. It's all Bigfoot. So it wasn't even a channel. I just did it to create the video on YouTube. And dude, I got like 2,000 views in like 2 weeks on my very first encounter that I released in 2019. Wow. my story, man. I've since made it private because I was so dissatisfied with the way I presented it, and now I tell it a lot better. But man, I felt so good about it. So as time went on, I said, yeah, I know how I felt, lost and alone. So I'm going to provide this for people that felt like I did. And you can see it in the videos. I'll do encounter stories every Saturday. I release a video about people's encounters. And you know how many people send back, Rob, thank you for doing that for me. I feel so much better. I didn't want to be on that. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want. Some of these people, Eric, have not even told their loved ones or their wives their encounters. They've kept it bottled in for years. That's not good for your mental health, man. We hear things about mental health. I tell you what, I thought I was crazy for about 18 months. I did.
But you don't know how true you are. I don't know. I don't really talk about this too much. When I was working for a medical company, we're doing. I was in charge of a warehouse, and I was also doing YouTube on the side at the same time. And then they got sold out to 3M, and they were like providing shops, positions being gone. Well, I got laid off. So I talked to one of my buddies, supervisor. He goes, Eric, I go, I'll tell you, don't tell anybody. One of the reasons why they wanted you laid off because they know you have a show, and you're kind of outspoken. You're not afraid to say something.
Yeah. So
because of the merger, and because we talk about we talk about UFOs.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
And they're afraid that if they do something wrong, you're not going to have a problem telling everybody about it. So you're right; it can happen because it did happen. I can't verify that was the reason. That's what I was told. That was part of the reason why they picked me because I had my own YouTube show talking about this, and they didn't want that kind of person. Because if I'm not afraid to talk about it on air, then I'm not afraid. It happens. It does. It does. But should you do? That's the question, right? Should you not do it?
And that was 18 minutes. 18 minutes of the best show I've seen on Paranormal Highway in quite a while. You'll find that link in the description. And I'll probably put it in there again here in a few. I hope you enjoyed that little clip from my friend Eric's show. A show called Paranormal Highway. That's right. Be sure to ride the Paranormal Highway. And I'm going to take a brief little music break. And then I'll be back with more stories from Bigfoot, Michigan, Rob's channel. I hope you're enjoying the Wolfman Dan show. And check this song out. I swear to you, I've been playing this song on my channels. This song I cannot get out of my head. This song sticks with me like glue. Let me know what you think in the comments on the stream and the comments after the show. Because comments after the show apparently mean something, but nobody leaves them.
Times are hard, but man's been here before and we'll get by. Like we've always done before, and if we try to do the best we can, we'll be alright. We will survive. The universe, as far as we can see, goes far beyond us. And our fails and victories are just illusions and reminders to do the best we can while we're here. Can we make it? Well, why are you asking me? I'm just a clown. Just kidding, I always have the answers, I'll never let you down. The answer is yes, we can. The universe, as far as do the best we can while we're here. And the universe sings. Do, 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 every time that music plays, I want to sing and dance. I want to gather with my friends like we did in the past. The distance of these troubled times will be a memory. The universe is endless, but it starts with you and me.
I hope you enjoyed that little tune here on the Wolfman Dan Show. It's called the Witching Hour. That's where I get witchy. And tonight we get witchy with my man Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob's got a new book coming out. And I hope everybody picks up that new book. I know I'm happy my son's done ordered me the new Bigfoot, Michigan Rob book. And tonight we're playing some Bigfoot, Michigan Rob Cryptid Tales here on the Wolfman Dan Show. We call 13 o'clock live, used to anyway. I changed the name from 13 o'clock live over to the Witching Hour. That way I can go home just an hour earlier and not have to be up all night. What do you think about that, guys? Anyway, we're going to hear about a family of Bigfoots in Colorado now. From Bigfoot, Michigan Rob.
But it's me, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. It's Friday. Happy Good Friday to you for those that celebrate. This upcoming Sunday, happy Easter to you as well. This is a fantastic encounter story. Took place in Colorado in 2020. I'm going to get on with it. Please like, please share to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. If you care to donate, the Super Thanks is open. And if you missed yesterday's show, Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Barry Brown, what a great show. What a great researcher. A lot of great stories. The first 30 minutes you get me talking about my time loss on Lake Erie because Barry did have some technical issues to start. Nonetheless, Barry's coming back. I'm going to get on with this story. It's fantastic. I hope you enjoy. Please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe.
Let me put Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on pause for a minute and welcome my friend Moggs, Mongolian Monster, to the chat. Thank you, Moggs, for coming over. I can't believe you joined me on my show. Hey, I was talking about you a little bit earlier on the stream, I think. Hey, notice I made you a moderator? Hint, hint. I love you, brother. No matter what anybody says, I do love Moggs. He's like one of the people I've been watching on YouTube longer than I've been watching anybody else. You know, years I've been watching Moggs. And I recommend everybody subscribe to Moggs' channel and check him out. He does some great stuff. And it's one of the shows I've actually been on. You know, I don't go on too many live streams. I don't show my face very often on people's shows. I really don't. I'm making a point not to. I'm something special. If I'm going to be on somebody's show, it's special. And Moggs is one of the shows I actually go on. I'm going to get back to Rob now.
Back during the Christmas season in 2020, my wife and family spent time at our family ranch style home outside of Estes Park in Colorado. We love the view of the mountains and the forest surrounding our 2,000 square foot home. It just feels like Christmas with the snow and the beautiful scenery. Typically, we spend November and December during winter and July and August during summer. We had purchased the ranch back in 2015 after successfully selling our family business in the home improvement market. Our main home is located outside of Denver. We loved owning both properties, one for relaxation, with the other keeping up with the typical hustle and bustle of the mainstream. We were fortunate enough to appreciate both lifestyles. In 2020, this was the first time since purchasing the Estes Park home that we did not arrive until the first week in December. Like I mentioned earlier, we normally spend November there as well, but my wife Brenda's mother became terminally ill, so we found it best to stay within a close proximity to Brenda's mom. My 23-year-old son Jake lived with us, and our daughter Ann, a few years older than Jake, was married and lived on the West Coast in Los Angeles with her husband Bob, who owns a thriving real estate business. In fact, it was Bob who found this beautiful gem at Estes Park through one of his real estate partners in Colorado. One of the best things about our home, it was private, yet we were friends with the 3 other homeowners on this section of land. To give you a better picture, there are 4 houses spread apart about a quarter mile in between parcels. The other 3 homeowners were living here prior to us with differing time periods from 3 to maybe 4 years. So we were newer to this part of Colorado. We had privacy, and at the same time, during summer, it was a quick golf cart ride over to visit our neighbors, or in the winter, we could jump on our snow machine during the winter times. When we pulled up early that December, and after settling into our home, Jake and I went off to look for a Christmas tree, to cut it down in our beautiful forest with the mountains serving as a backdrop to our house. Surprisingly, for this time of year, there was perhaps a foot of snow covering the ground. We revved up our Yamaha snowmobile, connected our trailer to the sled for the tree, and we sped off. We reached the tree line, which was lined with great prospects for my son and I to choose from. Upon our approach, I noticed footprints or tracks paralleling the tree line. What was most unusual is these tracks were not of the usual animals that roam the forest. These appeared to be human-like. You could actually see toes. Now, some were covered with snow being blown about the tracks, and certainly some snow had melted. Several, however, were very distinctive with a variety of sizes. I had pulled out my measuring tape and recorded sizes of 23 inches long by 7 inches wide, by 19 inches long by 5 inches wide, and a smaller set that was only about 11 inches long by 4 inches wide. They were all in a straight pattern along the tree line, then turned back into the forest about 10 feet. Then the prints were gone. My son and I were excited about this finding, yet perplexed at the sudden vanishing of the tracks further into the woods. My son and I immediately started asking each other if these were Sasquatch prints. Jake and I loved and believed in Bigfoot. In fact, my brother, Steve, did Bigfoot research and was always telling us about his findings. So we were very well informed on the subject. We took some pictures to show my wife and started looking for our tree. About a half hour into our search for our Christmas tree, pine cones started being tossed at us from the depths of the woods. Startled, my son and I just knew that this had to be Bigfoot. We were not scared. The cones can't hurt us, and they all fell just about 4 or 5 feet in front of us. This went on for about 5 minutes. Then it stopped. Jake and I continued on, looking for our tree to cut down. We were excited about getting our tree and even more excited to get back and tell Brenda what we had experienced. We found our tree, cut it down, loaded it on our trailer, and just before starting the Yamaha sled, a very loud and thunderous whoop was blasted out from the forest. We didn't start the snowmobile. We waited a few moments to listen for another whoop. Nothing more could be heard, and we started back to the ranch. I immediately told Brenda, and she shared in the excitement that exuded from Jake and I. We calmed down a little bit, and we prepared dinner. Later in the evening, around 8 p.m., the moon was high, and it was bright, and the snow glistened upon the ground. Our family was sitting around our fireplace and admiring our brand new Christmas tree. Brenda said, "Honey and Jake, you have outdone yourselves on this tree." Almost immediately after Brenda praised our accomplishment, we heard a very loud whoop from outside our home. We sat and we listened. Then another whoop, then another, and another, and another. There were about 5 whoops. They all had very different tones. The thing about these vocalizations is that one sounded just like the earlier one Jake and I had heard. The second was not quite as thunderous, perhaps a bit softer, if that makes sense. There was also a third. The third sounded not nearly as deep. It had no boom or no bass to it, is the best way I can describe it. Jake said, "Dad, it makes sense. We saw 3 different sets of tracks earlier, suggesting that maybe we had a family of Sasquatch just outside our house." We all ran to our large picture window that faced the wood line. We could hear the whoops, but we could not see anything. The moon did light up the snow, but still it was too dark to see. Then suddenly my son said, "Dad, look." He pointed to my wife and I as to where to look outside the window. There we saw an amazing sight. Standing outside of the tree line was 3 sets of glowing green eyes that were blinking. The moon cast a shadow of 3 figures, all ranging from really tall to about a foot or so shorter, and to one that was half the size. So now there's 3 shadows, all 3 different sizes that they can see from the woods. They can see green blinking eyes, everybody. Pretty cool. They go on to say, this I do believe was a family of Bigfoot. I am guessing a male, a female, and a juvenile. Putting a height on the Sasquatch, I would estimate the tallest at maybe 9 feet, the second one perhaps 8 feet, and the smaller one rounding out to be maybe about 5 feet tall. We all had gazed in amazement. I did not even think to grab a camera. Then, suddenly, the green eyes disappeared, and you could just barely see the shadowy figures disappear back into the tree line. Again, this took place in 2020. Certainly, we still own our ranch in Estes, Colorado, and despite never having a visual of these Sasquatch, we from time to time over the past 3 years still hear the whoops. We hear them in the distance. We all know that Bigfoot are close, and we all are still waiting for our first visual. I am sure one day that we will get this experience. Thank you, Rob, for allowing this to be read on your show. Signed, Roger. Well, Roger, that was a great story. I hope you all enjoyed it. Nice and calming. A family of Bigfoot in Colorado. Sounds like the guy's got a fabulous place. I'd love to be out there and check that out, wouldn't you? Again, subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. You guys have a fabulous Friday, a great Easter. I will see you next Tuesday on Beyond BMR with Sarah Bignell. Sarah.
That was Bigfoot Michigan Rob with another cool story. You can find a lot more stories like that in his new book coming out, Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. Be sure to check that out here on YouTube. What do you say we do another Bigfoot Michigan Rob story? Does that sound cool with you guys? I don't hear you. How about in chat? Alrighty, whatever. This is an Appalachian Trail Bigfoot encounter with my man, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, here on the Midnight Hour with Wolfman Dan, and I'm hollering and screaming. And hopefully there'll be some action. You know, I have made videos. I have caught a lot of stuff around this area. But the one night I do a live stream, you can rest assured, it's nice and quiet and ain't crap gonna happen that just makes me feel like pulling my hair out. instead of the Appalachian Trail one, I might do that one next. But what do you say we do the Bigfoot Canyon one? Because that's one of my favorite Bigfoot Michigan Rob stories. What about you guys? Do you like that one?
The account, the only reason that really I'm presenting this, this is a story told by Fred Beck in 1967 about, he tells the story through the eyes of his friend that was there in 1924. And again, this is a little different recap or encounter of what happened there. So that's really kind of the reason why I'm doing this, because a lot of us as Bigfoot, whether you're an enthusiast or researcher or just like the stories, it's different than the other ones. So it's from this man's perspective, what he saw. And I thought it was cool, good enough to present to you guys. And please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. I read this through, and you know what? I enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So I'm going to get on with it. And let me just pull this up really quick. And don't forget, on Tuesdays, Beyond BMR at 9 o'clock, brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Thursdays at 1 in the East, found on the channel. And let's get on. The account of the attack of the famous incident, July 1924, when the hairy apes attacked our cabin. We had been prospecting for 6 years in the Mount St. Helens area, near River Lewis in southwest Washington. We had from time to time come across large tracks by creek beds and springs. In 1924, I and 4 other miners were working our gold claim. It was 2 miles east of Mount St. Helens, near a deep canyon now called Ape Canyon. Tom, a great hunter and good woodsman, was always a little bit apprehensive after seeing the tracks. The tracks were large, and we knew that no known animal could have made them, the largest measuring 19 inches long. It was the middle of July, and we had received a good asset on our claim, and everybody was excited. I remember I had a toothache that day, and it was aching, and I had suggested to Tom that he should take me to town to see a dentist. But he was so enthused with the prospects of the gold mine that he did not even answer me. He, in fact, just ignored me. We all came up in his pickup truck, and I had no way to get back to town unless he took me. So we went back to our cabin on the north side of the canyon with my nagging tooth. In fact, I could not even eat the evening's meal. Tom, though apprehensive, was still determined. We had been hearing noises in the evening for about a week. We heard a shrill, peculiar whistling every evening. We could hear it coming from one ridge and then hear an answering whistle from another ridge. We also heard a sound which I could best describe as a booming, thumping sound, just like something was hitting or pounding on its chest. Tom asked me to accompany him to the spring about 100 yards from the cabin to get some water, and suggested we take our rifles, just to be on the safe side. We walked to the spring, and then Hank yelled and raised his rifle. And at that instant, I saw it. It was a hairy creature. And he was about 100 yards away on the other side of a little canyon, standing by a pine tree. It dodged behind the tree and poked his head out from the side of the tree. Yet at the same time, Tom shot. I could see the bark fly out from the tree from each of his 3 shots fired. Someone may say that, well, that was quite a distance to see the bark fly, but I saw it. The creature I judged to have been about 7 feet tall with blackish brown hair. It disappeared from our view for a short time, but then we saw it running fast and upright, about 200 yards down the little canyon. I myself shot 3 times before it disappeared from view. We took the water back to the cabin and explained the affair to the rest of the party, and we all agreed, including Tom, to go home the next morning, as it would be dark before we could get to the car or the truck. We agreed it would be unsound to be caught by darkness on our way out. Nightfall found us in our pine log cabin. We had built the cabin ourselves and had made it very sturdy. It stood for years after the incident and was visited by many sightseers until a few years ago when it was burnt to the ground. The circumstance of the fire unknown. In the cabin, we had a long bunk in which 2 could sleep, feet to feet. The rest of us sleeping on the pine boughs on the floor. At one end of the cabin, we had a fireplace fashioned out of rocks. There were no windows in the cabin, so darkness found all of us in the cabin. More calm now, my tooth getting better. Somehow the excitement just seemed to work a temporary cure on it. We were sitting around puffing on pipes and talking about the trip home the next day. Each of us settled down in this crude but welcoming beds that we had made. We soon fell asleep. About midnight, we were all awakened. Tom, Hank, another member of the party, was sleeping on the floor and was yelling and kicking. But the noise that had awakened us was a tremendous thud against the cabin wall. Some of the chinking had been knocked loose from between the logs and had fell across Tom's chest. He had his rifle in his hand and was waving it back and forth as he kicked and yelled. Tom always slept with a gun nearby. This particular was a Remington automatic. My gun, a .30 Winchester. I helped to get the chinking off, and he jumped to his feet. Then we heard a great commotion outside. It sounded like a great number of feet trampling and rattling over a pile of our unused shakes. We grabbed our guns. Tom squinted through the space left by the chinking. By actual count, we saw only 3 of the creatures together at one time. But it sounded like there were many more. This was the start of the famous attack, of which so much has been written in Washington and Oregon papers over the years. Most accounts tell of giant boulders being hurled against the cabin, and say some even fell through the roof, but this was not quite the case. There were very few large rocks around in that area. It is true that many smaller ones were hurled at the cabin, but they did not break through the roof, but hit with a loud bang and rolled off. Some did fall through the chimney of the fireplace. Some accounts state that I was hit in the head by a rock and knocked unconscious. That's not true. The only time we shot our guns that night was when the creatures were attacking our cabin. When they would quiet down for a few minutes, we would quit shooting. I told the rest of the party that maybe if they saw we were only shooting when attacked, they might realize we were only defending ourselves. We could have had clear shots at them.
Sorry to do that, Goose, but hey, did anybody see anything while I was gone? I was in the house for quite a while making me another drink. Did anybody see anything move? Was there a fucking creature out there or something? Let me know in the comments if you see anything, because I've been having a lot of crazy activity here in South Carolina lately.
Through the opening left by the chinking, had we chosen to shoot. We did shoot, however, when they climbed up on our roof. We shot round after round through the roof. We had to brace the hewed logged door with a long pole taken from the bunk bed. The creatures were pushing it, and the whole door vibrated from the impact. We responded by firing many more rounds through the door. They pushed against the walls of the cabin as if trying to push the cabin down. but this was pretty much an impossibility. As previously stated, the cabin was a sturdy, made building. Tom and I did most of the shooting. The rest of the party crowded to the far end of the cabin, guns in their hands. One had a pistol, the others clutched rifles. Everybody seemed stunned and incredulous. The attack continued the remainder of the night, with only short intervals between. A most profound and frightening experience occurred when one of the creatures, being close to the cabin, reached an arm through the chinking space and seized one of our axes by the handle. Before the thing could pull the axe out, I swiftly turned the head of the axe upright so that it caught on the logs, and at the same time Hank shot, barely missing my hand. The creature let go, and I pulled the handle back and put the axe in a safe place. A humorous thing I'll remember was Tom saying, "If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, and we'll all go home in the morning." He did not mean it to be humorous, for Tom was dead serious and saying under the impression that the mountain devils, as he called them, might understand and go away. The attack ended just before daylight. Just as soon as we were sure it was light enough to see, we came cautiously out of the cabin. It was not long before I saw one of the ape-like creatures standing about 80 yards away near the edge of Ape Canyon. I shot 3 times, and it toppled over the cliff down into the gorge, some 400 feet below. But Tom said that we should get out of there as soon as possible and not bother to pack our supplies or equipment. After all, he said, it's better to lose them, the equipment that is, than lose our lives. We were all only too glad and agreed. We brought out only that which we could get into our pack sacks. We left about $200 in supplies, powder, and drilling equipment behind. I tried to persuade everyone not to relate the happenings to anyone. They all agreed. But Tom soon let the cat out of the bag as we made our way to Spirit Lake. Tom went on into the ranger station. He told the ranger earlier about the tracks, and the ranger had replied, "Let me know if you find out what they are." That's just what Tom did, to the puzzlement of the ranger. When we went back home to Washington, he told some of his friends, and somehow the story leaked out to the papers. And the great hairy ape hunt of 1924 was on. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. The story of Ape Canyon, told a little bit differently from an alleged person, a miner that was at the cabin. A lot of similarities, I suppose, to the first story. I found this one to be a good one. Do you believe it? Leave a comment. I appreciate everybody listening in. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Don't forget, Tuesday nights at 9 in the East is Beyond BMR. Thursdays at 1 p.m. in the East is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan.
Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Be sure to check out that show. This is the Wolfman Dan. I'm a howling loud tonight. You know, I've been having a lot of activity around my area lately. You can see them videos on this channel, the Daily Dan Blog. Be sure to check them videos out. I actually caught a Bigfoot-looking thing on camera last week. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be honest with you and say it was Bigfoot, but it was 8 foot tall, it was big, and it was hairy. And that video's up here on YouTube, as well as some of the action and some of the weird things that's been going on around this area. I appreciate y'all staying up late and hanging out with Daddy Dan. I want to give a special shout out to my girl, Iron Dogger. You know, I love that girl. You know, I've been friends with her on YouTube about longer than anybody. We met years ago. Years ago. I want to give a special shout out to my girl Sarah over in California. That's my flock is everywhere. and my good buddy Corey at Corey's Comedy Channel. I appreciate you stopping in. Be sure, Corey, to check out some of my comic book reviews. There's one, I don't know which one. I don't really know which one. It had a bunch of jokes in it. I called them out especially for you. I'm surprised I didn't see them jokes on your channel. Really? But I'm enjoying playing some Bigfoot Michigan Rob for you, even though I don't know how much longer the power on this phone I'm streaming on will hold up. I was really hoping Bigfoot would show up out there somewhere. But, it's the way it goes. The one night I do a live stream, it's quiet as heck and nothing's happening. Every other night, something weird happens, but not while I'm live streaming. That's just the way it goes. But tonight we're talking about Bigfoot, Dogman, and all the cool creatures in the cryptid world. I actually got a comic book called The Cryptids that featured nothing but Bigfoot, Dogman, and other cryptids. You can see that video here on the Danny Dan blog. Be sure to look that bad boy up if you get bored. And I'm going to play the Ruby Creek Bigfoot Encounter now by Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And be sure to pick up Bigfoot Michigan Rob's book. That's right, true. Cryptid Encounters Book 1. My son ordered it for me, and I can't wait till I get it. You'll see that video here on YouTube coming up really, really soon. And now this is Bigfoot Michigan Rob with the Ruby Creek Encounter.
Hello, everybody. It's Bigfoot Michigan Rob, BMR. My third installment of the Sasquatch or Bigfoot Classics. This is written by Ivan Sanderson. It was published in 1960. It's an interview that took place in the 1940s. Before I get on with it, I dropped Dogman in Alabama on Thursday. That was a fantastic story, encounter that had to be put out. It was an email that I received. Kind of tragic, but again, a story that had to be told or heard. Go check it out if you would, and subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. There's a caveat to this as well before I get started. This was written in 1960, and as you're listening to this, the writer doesn't show a lot of respect for our indigenous, our First Nations, so I got to start by saying I don't agree with a lot of what's been written. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I have nothing but respect. And frankly, the stories from the First Nations are really what I hang on to as truth and factual. And I'll leave it at that. You can make your own opinions as the story unfolds. Stories about the Sasquatch have been appearing in print from time to time since the 1860s. And I, again, Ivan Sanderson, have clippings in my files from almost every year since the early 1920s. But the modern history of the Sasquatch really dates from September 1941, when one of these creatures paid a visit in broad daylight to an Indian family named Chapman. Well, the American Indian stories have usually been dismissed as legend or laughed off, because Indians are not supposed to be reliable. This experience was accompanied by too much physical evidence to be ignored. And again, on that first statement, I don't agree with. So just to put that caveat out there again. The Chapman family consisted of George and Jeannie Chapman and children numbering, at my visit, 4. Mr. Chapman worked on the railroad and was living at that time in a small place called Ruby Creek, 30 miles up the Fraser River, and yet in Agassiz, British Columbia, in Canada's Great Western Province. It was about 3 in the afternoon on a sunny, cloudless day when Jeannie Chapman's eldest son, then age 9, came running to the house saying that there was a cow coming down out of the woods at the foot of the nearby mountain. The other kids, a boy age 7 and a little girl age 5, were still playing in a field behind the house bordering on the rail track. Mrs. Chapman went out to look. Since the boys seemed oddly disturbed, and they saw what at first she thought was a very big bear moving about among the bushes bordering the field beyond the railway tracks. She called the two children, who came running immediately. Then the creature moved onto the tracks, and she saw to her horror that it was a gigantic man covered with hair, not fur. The hair seemed to be about 4 inches long all over, and a pale yellow-brown color. To pin down this color, Mrs. Chapman pointed out to me a sheet of lightly varnished plywood in the room where we were sitting. This was of a brown ochre or ochre color. This creature advanced directly toward the house, and Mrs. Chapman had, as she put it, much too much time to look at it, because she stood her ground outside while the eldest boy, on her instructions, got a blanket from the house and rounded up the other children. The kids were in a near panic, she told us, and it took 2 or 3 minutes to get the blanket, during which time the creature had reached the near corner of the field only about 100 feet away from her. Mrs. Chapman then spread the blanket and, holding it aloft so that the kids could not see the creature or it see them, she backed off at the double to the old oil field and down onto the river beach out of sight, and then ran with the kids downstream to the village. I asked her a leading question about the blanket. Had her purpose in using it been to prevent her kids from seeing the creature, in accord with an alleged American Indian belief that to do so brings bad luck and often death? Her reply was both prompt and surprising. She said that, although she heard white men tell of that belief, she had not heard it from her parents or any other of her people, whose advice regarding the so-called Sasquatch had been simply not to go further than to certain points up in certain valleys, to run if they saw one, and not to struggle if one caught them, as it might squeeze them to death by mistake. No, she said, I used the blanket because I thought it was after one of the kids, and so might go into the house to look for them instead of following me. So she tries to cover up the kids with the blanket in fear and to hide them. This seems to have been sound logic, as the creature did go into the house and also rummage through an old outhouse pretty thoroughly, hauling in from inside the house a 55-gallon barrel of salt fish. Now this is this Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, is now lifting up a 55-gallon barrel from inside of the house. He broke it open and scattered its contents about the outside. In parentheses, he writes, the irony of it is that all those 3 children did die within 3 years. The 2 boys by drowning, and the little girl on a sick bed. And just after Sanderson interviewed the Chapmans, they were also drowned in the Fraser River when a rowboat capsized. Wow. Mrs. Chapman told me that the creature was about 7.5 feet tall. She could estimate its height by the various fence and line posts standing about the field. It had a rather small head and a very short, thick neck. In fact, really no neck at all. A point that was emphasized by William Rowe and by all others who claimed to have seen one of these creatures. Its body was entirely human in its shape, except that it was immensely thick through its chest, and its arms were exceptionally long. She did not see the feet, which were in the grass. Its shoulders were very wide, and it had no breasts. From Miss Chapman, assumed it was a male. Though she also did not see any male genitalia due to the long hair covering its groin. She was most definite on one point. The naked parts of its face and its hands were much darker than its hair, and appeared to be almost black. George Chapman returned home from his work on the railroad that day, shortly before 6 in the evening, and by a route that had been passed by the village, so that he saw no one to tell him what had happened. When he reached his house, he immediately saw the woodshed door battered in and spotted enormous humanoid footprints all over the place. Greatly alarmed, for he, like all of his people, had heard since childhood about the big wild men of the mountains. Though he did not hear the word Sasquatch till after this incident, he called for his family and then dashed through the house. Then he spotted the foot tracks of his wife and kids going off toward the river. He followed these until he picked them up on the sand beside the river and saw them going off downstream without any giant ones following. Somewhat relieved, he was retracting his steps, and he stumbled across the giant's foot tracks on the riverbank farther upstream. These had come down out of the potato patch, which lay between the house and the river. In fact, they were milled out by the river, and then gone back through the oil field, or old field it says, toward the foot of the mountains, where they disappeared in the heavy growth. Returning to the house, relieved to know that the tracks of all four of his family had gone off downstream to the village, George Chapman went to examine the woodshed. In the interview, after 18 years, he still expressed voluble astonishment that any living thing, even a 7-foot 6-inch man with a barrel chest, could lift a 55-gallon tub of fish and break it open without using a tool. He confirmed the creature's height after finding a number of long brown hairs stuck in the slab wood above the doorway, which was well above the level of his head. George Chapman then went off to the village to look for his family and found them in a state of calm collapse. He gathered them up and invited his father-in-law and 2 others to return with him for protection of his family when he was away at work. The foot tracks returned every night for a week, and on 2 occasions the dogs that the Chapmans had taken with them set up the most awful racket at exactly 2 o'clock in the morning. The Sasquatch did not, however, molest them, touch them, did not even touch the house or the woodshed. But the whole business was just too unnerving, and the family finally moved out, and they never went back. It goes on to read the Chapman's house at Ruby Creek. After a long chat about this and other matters, Mrs. Chapman suddenly told us something very significant just as we were leaving. She said, "It made an awful funny noise." I asked her if she could imitate this noise for me, but it was her husband who did so, saying that he had heard it at night twice during the week after the first incident. He then proceeded to utter exactly the same strange gurgling whistle that the men in California who said they had heard a Bigfoot call. This is a sound I cannot reproduce in print, but I can assure you that it is unlike anything I have ever heard by man or beast anywhere in the world. To me, this information is of the greatest significance. That an American Indian couple in British Columbia should give out what exactly the same strange sound in connection with a Sasquatch that two highly educated white men did over 600 miles south in connection with California's Bigfoot. Finds it incredible. If this is a hoax or a publicity stunt or mass hallucination, as some people have claimed, how does it happen that this noise, which defies description, always sounds the same no matter who has tried to reproduce it? These were probably the last words of the Sasquatch that the Chapmans uttered, and I absolutely refuse to listen to anybody who might say they were lying. Admittingly, honest men are such a rarity as possibility to be non-existent, but I have met a few who are qualified, and I put the Chapmans near the head of the list. Ivan T. Sanderson, True Magazine, 1960. Classic story. I don't agree with these vocalizations sounding the same. Maybe they did back in the 1940s up to the 1960s, but most of us in this field, or most of us that listen, there's no exact same Bigfoot vocalizations, right? Similar yet different. So this part of the story with this Ivan, I take that with a grain of salt. As far as the story goes, certainly believable. It probably happened. Again, as I mentioned earlier before I started this, I think getting these stories from our First Nations are ones that we should listen to with respect, and I think we should listen to them with credence, and I think that for the most part they're accurate. I myself don't think this was a hoax.
I got a phone for every one of them. Right? That's some shit.
Especially in the 1940s. What are you going to gain? Even much like today, what are you going to gain? 15 seconds, 15 minutes of fame?
A laptop
I don't know.
for one
I
of
don't
them.
buy that. I do buy this story. Thank you for listening.
And that was Bigfoot Michigan Rob with a classic Sasquatch encounter from Ruby Creek in 1941. And our dogger, I actually have a freaking phone for every channel and a laptop for one other one. Oh my God, you make me feel so bad. But I like a different phone for every channel. You're listening to Wolfman Dan. I'm wide open tonight, guys. I don't even know where our dogger just cracked me up. She made me realize how messed up the Daddy Dan is. Oh my goodness. Yes, darn dogger. I have a phone for every freaking channel I got. And between you and me, I've got 14 freaking channels. But I'm not going to advertise all of them. Some of them I just use to put up a video to see if it gets the copyright before I put it up on one of my channels that I actually give a darn about. Like the Daddy Dan blog, the channel you're listening to now. And if you're not a subscriber of the Daddy Dan blog, you should definitely subscribe to the Daddy Dan blog to hear lots of really cool stuff like you're hearing now. You can see me review comic books. And when I review a comic book, don't think I'm one of these comic book gooses who's going to sit there and talk about how great the comic book is. I'm like I guess a shock comic or one of them comics who do some insult comic. Because if you see me review a comic book, I'm usually doing one that I'm going to make fun of. I'm going to pick on. I'm going to be a little bit mean to. Because that's just the way it goes. Here on YouTube. What do you think? Do you like the way I do comic book reviews? Let me know in the comments below. Well, it's been a long night here on YouTube. And I want to appreciate all my cool friends like Iron Dogger and Sarah and My Flock. And that really cool dude, Corey's Comedy Channel. I like Corey, but he don't watch my videos, because if he did, he'd know. I've been talking about him in a couple of them, but he's still cool. You should check out Corey. He makes me laugh. And that's something that most people don't do this week. This really don't make me laugh. It's hard to make the Daddy Dan laugh. It really is. But I appreciate people who do. And I want to give a special shout out to my friend Dave Sunstorm, who come in here and checked me out earlier. You'll find his link in the chats. My friend Michael Harper, who's the only other victim that I can think of besides me who gets picked on by trolls. Yeah, I've got a troll problem, but I slay the trolls. Hey, I'm going to finish tonight and wrap it up here on the Daily Dan blog. Welcome, and I appreciate you joining me for my new show, The Midnight Hour. And it replaces 13 o'clock live because it's an hour earlier. 13 o'clock live I was doing at 1 o'clock, and that's awful late in the morning for an old man. So I'm doing the midnight hour now. And once in a while I'll pop up and out of the blue do you a midnight hour. Thank you for joining me tonight. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Check out all the links in the chat from all the really cool people like my real good friend Long Island Bigfoot. You'll find his link in the chat already, even though he just got here. And hey, Long Island, you are the real deal. Long Island Bigfoot. Check him out. You can find his videos on my channel where he's on Paranormal Caught on Camera. Because Long Island Bigfoot, unlike most people, is the real deal. He actually catches stuff. He makes TV. He makes all the rest of us look bad. But I salute you, Long Island Bigfoot, for being the real deal. And as I close the show tonight, I'll make sure I drop your link in the chat. Check out this. Well, maybe. You're going to check out this? Okay, maybe not. Maybe you will.
And this is the Sasquatch song.
And happy trails from the Daily Dan blog.
Well, in the mountains of Arkansas, that's where I go to break the law. Just trying to go my mountain way. When I get out in that trail, I get caught up in that smell. Looks like I'm here to stay for good. But wait a second, what's that there? Holy fuck, I think it's a bear. Nope, it's definitely not a bear. Well, his eyes are red and sit real low. Holy shit, man, I think he's stoned. He ate damn near all the way. Well, that's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. Sasquatch, you are my friend. Well, he's 10'10" with dark red hair, and he doesn't really have a care. His foot is flying the size of mine. Well, we don't really talk, we just hang out by the river when we're catching trout. He doesn't even need a boat. That's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. Sasquatch, you are my friend. But when his eye comes down, he gets real low. That's when he eats a couple of toes to soothe all those sassy knees. And he's got a lot of really weird shit, like a sack of lizards in a possum pit, and a tree that's full of juice. That's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. But Sasquatch, you are my friend. Within the mountains of Arkansas, that's where I go to break the law. Just trying to go my mountain way. Well, friends with an 8 to 10 foot tall, and I don't
And I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And I wish something had happened. I wish we could have seen a Bigfoot critter out there. Thanks. Oh, finally, King of Cleveland says something. Hey, he's got a great video channel. Be sure to check out King of Cleveland. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that stupid little bell. Until next time, this is Danny Staten on the Day Dad blog. The Witching Hour, Wolfman Dan. Had a good time tonight. I hope you enjoy it, my Bigfoot and Dogman tales. Next time, I might do some more whenever I decide to go live. Till next time, live stream over. Okay, over.